Bob Greenwood, Bill Kraus, Richard Anderson, Gary Barnhill, David Calgaro, Bobby Campbell.
So I had so many really dear friends, and in the early 80s when AIDS, when they called it GRID, it started coming, when people just started dying. They didn't know what was going on, and it was so frightening. There's really no way to explain to somebody who hasn't gone through what the 80s and the 90s were like. The quilt originally was about anger. We were bringing our dead. Quilt, the size is 3 by 6 for a reason. That's the size of a grave. We were laying down our dead in front of the government to show them how much space it would take if we had to bury all these people. And that's what the quilt was. And to me, it will always be. It's an activist tool.
Being positive, you felt like a scourge, you felt like a pariah, you felt like no one would want to touch you again. People were afraid of you, felt like you were going to die in a year. Some people didn't even have anybody that would be willing to touch them anymore.
What's awesome about the long-term survivors is that it's a community, that uses art to help heal. And there's, and they've used art through the movement to get global attention for AIDS. Keith Haring's artwork, Silence Equals Death campaign. So they were totally ready to dive into art making to talk about what HIV is like. Hi, I'm Diana Sharetta. I'm an artist with the Red and Orange House, and we are here today in Oakland in a warehouse that is now the home of the AIDS Quilt.
This is the first display in 1987 in DC, and then they'll just go from 1996 and a lot of miscellaneous. But all these posters are really important to us. We like to try to get up as much as we can. My name's Gert McMullen. I've been with the quilt for 34 years. I'm their first volunteer and considered one of the founders of the quilt. So I've been sewing it for about 34 years. I have the arthritic hands to prove it. I sew the quilt. Yeah, I've been sewing it since day one. I've made a lot of my own panels, but every one of these has gone through my hands at one point or another. But for the last 20 years, I've been primarily the only person who sews it up. So I accept the new panels, and then I check them out for individual repairs, and then I'll lay them out on the floor, figure out what configuration I want them, and sew it up that way, and then edge them and grommet them. And I also do the repairs of them too. So we'll go into where the quilt lives now. Okay, so that's not much up here. I just wanted to kind of... There's 6,009 of those big units, which equals out to about 50,000 panels, which equals out to about 105,000 names, which is only about 14% of the deaths. A lot of people look at the quilt like it's big, and I look at small, because it could be so much bigger.
Oh, he could do a toga. He could do a toga, and you would...
No. You just do
Because this is art making for healing. Right now, what we're doing.
We're doing something more.
Oh, like a sari?
Yeah, very incognito.
Yes, darling. But tell it. But you've been making. This is Miguel. Miguel's been making costumes for how many years, honey?
Since I was like 10 years.
Since he was 10 years old. And you've made how many panels?
11 actually.
He's made 11 panels for loved ones that are stitched into this quilt. So right now,
I'm looking for a kind of a blue.
we have some gorgeous pieces that were donated from a fabric store. And we're going to look through.
These are very expensive fabric. It's
I know.
like from
A real honest to God
Yes.
store. So you're looking for
Yeah.
a blue background.
yeah, but
You want to see the back of it?
no, most people are not aware that this exists. They have heard about it, but they never have any contact, and it's overwhelming once you get here and see the magnitude of this. I have been to 3 of the displays in Washington, D.C. on the mall. And the last time you couldn't put it, it was so many people. So it's kind of, the first time is really overwhelming. I mean, you have people crying and holding each other, and very moving experience, yeah.
Hi, my name is Derek. I'm out here making a quilt for essentially my first love. He decided to commit suicide by neglect, which in his case was he stopped all of his medication. He went home, he rented an apartment from a friend of his, and yeah, he just stopped his medication. Unfortunately, I was out of town at the time, so they got me one of his big ceramic bowls. And I carried around for years, actually, becoming HIV positive. I had a really hard time because it was one of the things that John had always sort of was really concerned for me about. But when I seroconverted, that bowl that I had and I carried with me for quite a number of years after he had died fell off the counter that I had it on and shattered. And for this quilt, I took a ceramic piece that I had, and I'm shattering it, and I want to create a sun image from it to represent him.
And now we memorialize our friends as best we can. So, I mean, everybody experienced it differently. That's the big. There's no like one AIDS story. Losing friends was the hardest, but I think it's harder now because I don't have them to talk to play with, to be around.
The AIDS crisis is about social injustice, and it takes all of us to stand up for what is, and to call out where there is injustice and to seek justice in that process.
In 1987, this guy came walking in, and he was bringing this one to check in. And we were Jack and I were there, and we were so taken by it, we asked if we could hold on to it until the last one. We thought it would be much sooner than this, but I'm still holding on to it all these years in hopes that I can sew this in and be done with all this. So this is kind of, our aim is to be out of business, not be in business. So that's about it.